Hi, everyone, and happy solstice to you. It is summer solstice, June 21st, 2023, here where I am in North America. I had hoped to record this outside, but alas, there's a soft rain falling and a blanket of cloud, which actually seems quite perfect given what I've been given to share with you today, which is all around the idea of this solstice in 2023, and particularly June 21st today through the 23rd, so these 3 days, being a passage, and a very important passage that will be looked back upon, even though it may not feel as if much is happening. This is a marker for humanity. So I've also been given the image of Fulcrum. So I'll just kind of speak today, share what's been on my heart in terms of this solstice energy, which is very much for me about a collective rebirth. So I will be addressing this passage, this time in terms of the energetic perspectives from a collective point of view. That being said, there's obviously much happening for each one of us individually, and normally that's where I begin. So I want to encourage you, before I get into sharing what I'm here to share. Oh, the lighting is not great, is it? Hi. I'll try to keep an eye on that. But I want to encourage you to really tap into what this transition, this rebirth, or almost like a reformation, re-energizing of your path forward. I want you to definitely take some time today to consider that, and I will be doing much the same. So I did take some notes, and I'm going to look at those notes. Hopefully I can keep an eye on the lighting situation. If not, I'll just cover it up with images when I release this. So it's about 11:30 in the morning on the summer solstice here where I am in North America. It may be the winter solstice for you if you're in the southern hemisphere. But regardless, there is a blanketing of the earth right now in a beautiful softness. It may appear to be gloom and doom and many other forms, but the way that I'm feeling it and seeing it is there's a blanket of protection for this time, which is a very tender time. And for me, what I've been shown is that this time really continues to be about the crowning of humanity and the gentle restoration of love on earth as we're making this passage into a new society, into a new era, rich in love, into the realm of radiance, which has been here waiting for us. And this is a time when we can fully experience it. And yet there is, for many of us, and most especially for humanity as a whole, there's this experience, the full experience, the full expression of who we are, and the full experience of that. To prepare the way for that, we must release, and this is a time of healing. I'll get to that in just a sec. So there are 7 crowns for humanity in this 7-year passage. Those 7 crowns are the 7 wonders of the soul, or they correspond to those 7 wonders of the soul that are born within us and anchored in humanity. That's what we're doing here, and we're at the midpoint right now, the fulcrum of 2023. The 7 wonders of the soul are faith, hope, love, healing, growth, passion, and beauty. These are 7 wonders of the soul were given to me, I believe it was on my birthday, but it was definitely in January of 1997, just after some really difficult things happened in my life. And those 7 wonders have always sort of like been in the background for me. They've come through several times in various aspects of my work and my art, and at different points. And initially they were given to me with this whole like vision of something that I felt at the time I was meant to bring forward to birth into the world. And that was very much about the connection, our connection to those seven wonders of the soul individually. Unfortunately, I was not successful in bringing that forward in the way that it was shown to me. But I will say that I have seen, particularly in the last 10 years, how it did come forward, and just not necessarily the exact same way that I was shown, but there are offerings out there. There are connection points to these seven wonders of the soul. So back to the summer solstice of 2023. Well, let me just say, until February of 2020, so a little over 3 years ago, I almost always, almost exclusively saw those seven wonders as pivotal for our individual growth and transformation, our individual formation, reformation, and transformation, as connecting points to the light and the life and the love we are, those seven wonders. And to me, they naturally fit in with the seven chakras and seven colors and seven movements, and there were lots of layers. But until February of 2020, when I was just before the pandemic, given this totally new vision of these seven wonders as being something that was a requisite, reordering a passage for humanity back to a restoration, really, back to the fullness of who we are and who we have always been. And yet that has been obscured. And so beginning in February 2020, I began to see these seven wonders as really being born in the collective of humanity. And also, I don't know that I'll get much into this today, but also connected with galactic heritage and a much larger unfolding beyond planet Earth. So that being said, so in 2020, and again, February is all I remember. It seems like it was maybe the second week of February, and I don't really know why I'm being drawn to say that right now, but for some reason that seems pertinent, maybe just to me. But Jesus showed me sort of the 7-year passage that we're in the midst of right now, and showed me how this passage to a new society or a new era rich in love would require these 7 anchors, if you will, and a receiving of these 7 crowns. And so I began to, record and release the videos related to that 7-year passage, and I shared them, but either due to the continued control and manipulation that is associated with various channels where I shared them, or perhaps due to, hearts just, in my own included, not being open to fully receive that, or me not knowing how to connect it, whatever. I'm not sure they really connected in the way they were meant to. And so I will leave a link below as to where you can find those videos if you would like to dive deeper into the specificity around each portion of the passage there. And if you have any ideas for how to share that, feel free to reach out. But, and maybe it was just that everybody, myself included, again, we're focused on the, either, not me on the news, but the so-called news, and or this, kind of shocking adjustment that we were all making during that time of March, April, the spring of 2020. But that material that I was given to share, and that I did share, and that it still exists on YouTube, was about each of those years. 2020, 2021, and 2022, which we've just come out of, were about faith, hope, and love, the foundation, the base. This year is the pivotal year. It's the Fulcrum year, and it is about healing, the wonder, the soul wonder of healing. And in particular, we're talking about the healing of humanity, which is, of course, much needed and huge and vast. And I feel totally ill-prepared to speak to it, but I'm going to do my best. So here we are in this pivotal Fulcrum year of 2023 about healing. And this is setting the foundation. So we've set the foundation with faith, hope, and love. And this year of healing is about releasing everything that's holding us back from fully experiencing the last 3 of the 7 wonders of the soul, which are growth, passion, and beauty. And that is what we will be leaning into in 2024, 2025, and 2026. The crowning year is 2027. Don't have much yet about that, just some visual images. But this year of 2023, and specifically June and July, again, starting today, 21st of June, going through at least the 22nd of July, and possibly through around early August, possibly August 8th, which is known by some as the Lion's Gate. And so this passage within a passage is all about healing, and how it all goes is fully dependent on our ability to release our clutching and holding on to. By the way, I've got a dog here, and her name is Ruby, and this feels significant in terms of a foundation for and a grounding for this this message, but also this healing. So that maybe I was also led to wear red. So. Let's see, I lost my train of thought there. Let me look at my notes. Oh yes, this Fulcrum period, this summer, is essentially how our ride goes through this passage, this full year here, and then really, the fuller passage as a whole is fully dependent on our ability to release our hold on and our clutching. It's as if we must allow this birth. This birth is going to happen, this rebirth for humanity. And it is our birth to our true nature as a collective, our true identity, which has been, in many cases, we hide it from ourselves because we fear our light, perhaps. And in other cases, it is deliberately manipulated and hidden from us, and there is this subjugation or conjugation. But nevertheless, when it's time for the baby to be born, the baby is born. The baby believes, or perhaps, that the womb is forever. It's the safe, nurtured space, generally speaking, and of course this is, I'm just making generalizations here just so we can kind of use this as a metaphor. So, the baby doesn't know the world outside, and the baby must allow, and the mother must allow for the birthing. And so there's an aspect of this right now where in some of our the ways that we show up in this life on this earth, we are the mother, and in some we are the child, and not mother as in gender there, but we are the one that nurtures and nourishes and allows for, and in other cases we are the one being born, and we are both and in this situation. Humanity itself is both and. And so there are things we are here to nurture and nourish and sustain. In particular, in my perspective and way of looking at that is the earth itself, the animals, the plants, our souls, our spirit, the spirit of life, the spirit of creation, all that has been entrusted to us by God, the Creator, the Great Spirit. And so there's a purpose and a time for everything, and this is a time of awakening, a new beginning, a passage, a receiving. But for the receiving to happen fully and as it is intended, we must release, and this is a choice. As always, it comes down to a choice. So what's required is the shedding of false beliefs, and particularly the shedding of false beliefs in our attachment to this idea that our experience is limited, that there are boundaries, that we can only go so far, that we messed it up before, and so we can't, like we live east of Eden, where we've been kicked out of the garden, and there's no redemption, no return, because it's so effed up that we can't possibly make our way back. And so this is the main opportunity. I was going to say challenge, but it's really an opportunity. The main opportunity here is to release our attachment to these false and limiting beliefs. Hello, Ruby. So I want to go back to that word that I just threw out because I looked it up. So I said that in a limited experience, or actually, I don't know if I said this, let me say it now. In a limited experience, and in our limited experience of our own humanity, from our individual perspective and then from the collective perspective within groups and organizations and within the larger flow of humanity, in our attachment to these beliefs about our limitation, our experience has been subjugated, sometimes willfully by others and sometimes by ourselves or by our subconscious or unconscious behaviors. And so there's been a subjugation and a conjugation. And when I got that message, I was like, conjugation. I was thinking of, conjugating verbs or something, but I looked it up, and the first definition that popped up for me was about chemistry. And the definition was talking about conjugation being relating to or denoting double or triple bonds in a molecule, which are separated by a single bond, across which some sharing of electrons occurs. And so, of course, electrons, energy, and again, I'm not a scientist. And so I feel like there's a lot more here to unpack, but I'm not going to go into great depth here. I was shown immediately something about covalence. I think I made a video about that a long time ago, but I don't really recall the message. So in any case, there's this whole thing about covalent bonds and electrons, that where the energy is heightened, and it was kind of shown to me visually, but again, it's far outside my depth of field to adequately explain. So I did want to mention it though, because I think it has to do with this three-star system, three-star communication that I've alluded to before, and that came up again for the solstice. I'll circle back to that in a sec. So this year, this solstice, this will be a marker. And yet it is a marker that will exist outside of the bonds of time and space, the ways that we typically have interpreted our human history. This marker is even more, it lives outside the bonds or bounds. I keep saying bonds, there's some meaning there, of the ways that we have defined our experience. So what's really happening here is the restoration of the very soul of what it means to be human, of humanity, but not in the ways that has been described by some who currently or in the past have held political power or religious offices or other positions that are granted to them on the basis of some belief in separation in one way or another, whether that is, the idea of power vested in, and or whether it is an elevation based on deeds or acts that are deemed worthy somehow, again, by human. I'm going to leave it there because I could go off on a tangent. But anyway, so this summer solstice, it's cloudy where I am and rainy, and I love the rain, so I'm at peace with that. And yet, we want to celebrate the light, and we will. And the opportunity right now is to allow for the release and to keep our hearts open to receive the new vision, a whole new way of seeing, a whole new way of being ourselves as humanity, a whole new way of seeing humanity, a whole new way of being ourselves together collectively and a whole new way of freeing ourselves. And this is the part where I get really excited, because it is the liberation of humanity that is what lights me up. Like, I believe in that with my whole heart and my whole soul, and I hope you do too. And I know if you're listening, you probably do. So this is where the world begins. This is the restoration of the soul of humanity, but not, again, not in the ways that we may have pictured that. And it is also the realm of radiance. And this is where I'm missing the sun a bit, because I want you to be outside and in the sun and, the cool rainbow light and all that stuff. But this is the realm of radiance. And for all to find the capacity to fully experience that realm of radiance, there must be a release of the terror which has bound us. And sometimes the terror comes packaged in a form which we have held up and called truth. So I just want to unpack that a bit. There have been points through human history where what we have accepted as true within our collective experience has in fact been a reign of terror. And this also happens on the individual level. And I write a lot about this, or I have written a lot about this. So let me just preface this part by saying I had no intention whatsoever of ever sharing this, but they did want me to mention it today, and I may end up reading a bit. I just need to check in a little bit after this video to see what I want to do here. But they led me back. They wanted me to share the title of the book that I wrote after my my pre-9/11 encounter with one of the terrorists, presumed terrorists of the 9/11. And the title of that book that I wrote was Holy Terror, Soul Restoration, the Inner Terrorist, and the Healing of Humanity. From what I saw in Ada's eyes to where the world begins again. And I'm going to focus on soul restoration, the inner terrorist, and the healing of humanity, because what they were showing me was this new, understanding of how it's collective. So when I wrote that book, of course, I'm coming from my own experience, and I was talking about the healing of humanity, very much so. But in terms of the soul restoration and the inner terrorist, I was approaching it from that we each have those inner terrorists, and that we have to restore our soul to its true identity. And so what I was being shown with regard to this passage, this summer solstice of 2023, was how, the restoration of the soul of humanity itself, and the recognition of all of the ways that we have been complicit in this reign of terror that we have allowed as a species, as humanity, as the whole of humanity. And then within that, in various groups within humanity. So that can look like ethnic groups, that can look like interest groups, that can look like countries, that can look like states and other geographic regions, and continents, that can look like cultural heritage. Sorry about that. That can look like a lot of things, but we have over and over and over again, sometimes quite knowingly, because we have chosen to compromise our true nature, because we felt like there was no other way, or because we felt like it was to our advantage, or for many other reasons, fear. There can be so many reasons. And so what I was shown about this passage here is just that it is important for us to give some consideration and reconsideration to the ways that we have been formed and informed wrongly by these misaligned beliefs and or falsehoods, sometimes based on fear, and the old saying, false evidence appearing real, and sometimes honestly coming from a the outrage within all of these various groups, whatever end of the spectrum one is on, whatever polar opposite or whatever. And that is important too, because part of this healing at the fulcrum, part of the healing is to broaden the circle, not to become more narrow, but rather to broaden the circle and to realize that all is held in love, all is forgiven, all is washed clean in this beautiful rain, in this beautiful rain of light, in this realm of radiance that is here and now, in this new earth that is the gift, the long-awaited gift, the coronation, and I find it so interesting, like, who knew, like, this whole recent, like, this is not saying anything about the royal family, but it's fascinating to me because, the word coronation and the 7 crowns and things that, is given way before anything happened, which looked like kind of crazy in the light of the events. It's very, very present, and we can see through what is the true coronation, the true crowning of our hearts, and what it is that is coming forth to be crowned, to be received. First and foremost, faith, hope, love, healing, growth, passion, beauty, a willingness to reconsider what it means to be human. So back to the message of the book that I wrote and never released, and don't really have any plans to release it, but I may consider. I'm feeling like I'm meant to share some of what I wrote there, and I may do that. But let me think about how I want to say this. Give me just a second here. So, in my own life experience, I have realized so many times that it's all about the love that flows between the poles. It's all about being able to honor what exists at both extremes. And so that's manifested itself in my own life with extreme experiences, primarily for me, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, going back, several decades. And also at times, though, like being pulled like by those extremes, which exist outside of me, and which even when I have healed my the own inner division with regard to those two extremes, however they're playing out, right? It's so fascinating to be in that place at that fulcrum, right? Because what happens is you get pulled by both extremes, or attacked by both extremes, trying to destabilize, so that you are forced to be identified as or put into one camp or the other. And now I think as humanity, certainly in my own country, the United States of America, in terms of like both politically and socially, I think that there has been that experience for many. And it is a wholly unsatisfying experience, and we can be destabilized by that if we fail to hold both, to hold a bigger space. And so this crowning of humanity, which is really a birth into the new, and also a return or a restoration to the love, the light, the life, and the love that we are. It's also, it brings up things, right? Because we realize that there's pain in allowing the space to receive, because we have to acknowledge, we must fully acknowledge the journey we have made. We must fully embrace the twin journeys, the journey to sacred wholeness and the journey to soulful transformation. Those are always unfolding simultaneously. And the radical reclamation, which is what goes along with the journey to sacred wholeness, the journey back to sacred wholeness, it's again a return. And this is what we're doing for humanity. So again, in the past, when I've talked about these twin journeys, I've often, in my work, talked about that in terms of the individual, but this is really a collective return to sacred wholeness, which is the radical reclamation of who we are as human beings and the radiant realization of who we are as human beings. And that radiant realization has to do with the fact that we are one with this realm of radiance, and we are an integral part of the realm of radiance. And it is a realignment to that and a reacceptance of our being in the dance of all creation. And so I think that is where I want to leave this portion of the video, and I will come back if I'm guided to share any particular words from the book that I have mentioned, and I may also share a bit in terms of the how to turn terror to truth. Many of you watching this video may not resonate with that because it's something from quite a ways back. And for most of us who have individually been on a path of awakening and attunement and awareness for perhaps many years now, or for some time, it may seem very basic. And yet I feel as if it's so important that we honor all the points at which all the peoples along in the whole of humanity, because here's the thing that's so beautiful. It doesn't actually matter where you've been, like it doesn't matter if you've never, ever, ever, ever considered yourself to be anything other than, what does the old hymn say? Such a worm as this, like humanity is terrible and flawed, and, the human condition is sunk and it's all about sin and death. It doesn't matter if that's been your worldview until today, or is even your worldview today, or if you consider yourself to be, completely enlightened and, just born an enlightened one and fully knowing, or someone who's done a lot of, so-called work along the spiritual path, and all of that is included in the receiving of the realm of radiance. There is no other. There's no other. There's only the family of humanity, and all belong. And that, in essence, was the message that I was trying to bring forth in the book I wrote after 9/11, the Holy Terror, Soul Restoration, what was it called? Soul Restoration, the Inner Terrorist, and the Healing of Humanity. From what I saw in Ada's eyes to where the world begins again. And here's the thing. The people that once we saw as despicable, as we projected onto those individuals or groups within humanity as being the worst of the worst, the cause, the bane of our existence, the cause of our problems, the point of our pain, they belong as much as the one who has been, as Jesus is to me, the light, the truth, and the way. Because the thing is, it is only when we can enter into such an experience, a full experience of life, meaning we see it for what it is, we recognize it, we recognize it, and we begin to remember or reassemble or reconfigure or reform the picture. And you see, when we can do that and see it as it is and love it all the same, wow, that is when we are in a whole new world. That is where the world begins again. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I completely lost my notes on this, and they were very detailed, and I'm not going to remember all of this, but I was shown a picture of the, I believe I made a video a few years back called the 3-star system, and it was about Sirius, and there's 3 stars, not 2, and I don't really recall the details of that, but what I was shown is that within each of us there is this, Trinitarian system of communication, and all the channels must be open, and they must be free of any bonds that are or any they must be, the center point must be returned to the still center within the 3. And I had a lot of notes about what each one of those was, and to be honest, I'm just not in a place of remembering all of that right now, so I think I will come back if that it'll come back through, I'm sure, if it was important, and I will share that. But the gist of it is this, that a part of this healing journey that we are on as a collective is about keeping the channels of communication open, respectful, honest, and true, and not allowing those to be co-opted or corrupted, or for there to be a spirit of collusion, even where we are participating in that collusion. They must be pure, pure and open flow. And so what I was shown is this happens within each of us, this communication of the 3 channels. It happens in humanity at large. Again, I don't remember the details. There were other details about what that was. But it has to do with the collapse of any time we have made the central clearing point, if you will, between those channels an external. It must become internal. It must become internal. It's as if, like, a pyramid collapses into something else, and there's something about stars in there that I wrote down. But in any case, I hope that somehow makes sense to someone out there. I know that I'm kind of rambling at this point, so I want to bring this to a close. But that is where we find, as the whole of humanity, our star power, our soul's truth and radiance. And this is the point from which, when we operate from this locus of control and this as the nexus of change, so the fulcrum that we are at here in this year of healing, can also be a metaphor for how we want to always stand in the center of our own sovereignty, and within holding that for all others, even all others who are not exhibiting such. Holding the ideal, the higher image, the true identity of the other is a part of what's at play here, and the opportunity. And when we can do that, all things become possible. And this is where we are at the fulcrum, at the summer solstice of 2023, in this time of healing. And it's going to be really exciting to see how things unfold from here. So I thank you for your time and attention if you have listened to this, and most of all for the journey that you are making and for your presence here and now. I see you, I love you, I honor the journey that you are making, and I am right there with you, alongside you. And while our paths may look very different, and while we may not agree on all aspects of the journey we are making, still we are walking in the way together.